Hello everyone, today we are going to continue working on our medallion quilt. So right now you should have your center Lone Star done as well as your first row, and then today we're going to work on adding the next sashing piece and the next border. So if we'll turn our attention over here to the quilt, we will add this red sashing, and then we will talk about adding this next border, which is two different blocks, the sawtooth star and then a dot block. And I have decided to use two colors on this one. So I have the gold color for the stars and then the green for the dot. And you can do really anything that we would like to do. On my sample piece, I have done all the dots in the same color. So you could do that, you could use all different colors, just kind of audition and see what will work best for your quilt. And anyway, so this border will be 6 inches wide. We're going to make 6-inch blocks. So let's go back over and show you the two different blocks that we're going to be making. The first block is the dot block, and it will be looking like this when you are done. And what you need for the dot block is one print square. This is a 2.5-inch square, and you'll need 12 of those. And the rest of the fabric will be all of your background fabric. So 2.5-inch square of your print, and then 2.5-inch squares, 2 of them of your background fabric. And you're going to sew those together right here, 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch. You'll have that, and so this will be 6.5 inches. And then for each block, we have a 2.5 by 6.5 inch piece that we're going to sew on each side. So 1/4 inch on each side. It will look like this. I like to press out towards the rectangle block, and then it just is really flat, and we're not pressing back on those seams. It would just kind of always flat. Okay, 12 of these, 6.5 inches unfinished. So by the time you have them all done, 6.5 inches unfinished, 12 blocks, and those will go super fast. Okay, so once you get those done, we're going to work on the sawtooth star. And to begin with, we're going to work on making flying geese. So we'll make the flying geese units, and then we'll put it all together into the sawtooth star. Okay, this is a little bit bigger than what you will actually need, but I feel like you can see it a little bit better. You'll have, this will be your background square, the bigger one, and it will be 4.5 inches big. And then you'll have 4 squares that will be your print fabric, 2.5 inches square. Okay, and then, so that's a lot of squares. That's 48 squares of the smaller squares and 12 of the bigger squares to make all 12 blocks. On these smaller squares, you will need to draw a diagonal line on the back of the fabric on each square. So all 48 squares draw diagonal lines from corner to corner. Okay, once you have done that, you're going to line up your squares. And I like to leave just a little bit, like 1/16 of an inch or less, just so you can see the background behind. And right there, and make sure you're lined up on your markings, that your diagonal's straight. And then you're going to sew a 1/4 inch along each side of that line. Once you have sewn on each side of that line, cut on the line, and you will have 2 two units that look like this. So once you cut those in half, you have two that look like this, and then you're going to press back like that. Press back, and then you're going to add another square, and this will have a diagonal line on it as well. Here's one that's marked. Diagonal line here. You're going to leave just a little bit of fabric showing behind, and then just like before, 1/4 inch on each side of each line, and then cut down the line. Then you'll end up with two. So this is what we had before, cut, they come apart, we're going to press back, and now we have those two flying geese units. Now, you will need to trim the units down. I like to use this ruler. It's called, I don't know where you can see it the best, a wing clipper. And it's just great at trimming up the blocks so that they're perfectly even where they need, and the lines where they need to be. So, like I said, this one's already trimmed up, but I'm going to kind of show you, if you can see this triangle line, I'm going to put right on the fabric where it matches exactly. So you can see that's exact. And then I'm going to trim here and here, flip the fabric around, and then line it up. This one's a little bit bigger than yours is going to be. Yours is going to be the 3.5 by 2. And so now I'm lining up the line here, and this little mark is where the point goes. And then I'm going to trim here and here. So that makes a perfect little flying geese unit. And then these lines end up right in the corner. You have a 1/4 inch to do your seam up here. So it's really nice. And this ruler, you can do 10 sizes. So that's what's really great about this ruler. There's other rulers. This one's called Quilt in a Day, and you can do a 3 by 6 inch finished and a 1.5 by 3 inch. So this is great too. These will do a 12-inch block, and these will do a 6-inch block, which are two very common blocks. So that might be all that you ever need. So anyway, a couple different options. You can also trim them up just using a regular ruler. If you do, you want to make sure the registration mark for a 1/4 inch is right on that point, and then take half of the width of your flying geese. So from 6.5, I'll go to 3.25. So on yours, you'd do 3.5. 1 3/4 would be the middle for the smaller ones we're doing. And then trim, and then you can flip it and do markings for 3.5 and 2 would be on yours. This is a little bit bigger. And then trim right here. And you can see right here is kind of a diagonal line. You can line that up with this line, and then you can get a clean cut. So it can be done on a different ruler. If anyone wants to borrow one of these rulers, they're more than welcome to. Okay, so now we'll do that 12 times. So we're going to end up with 48 of the little flying geese. And you can see on here, it's this unit right here. So they're pretty small. 1.5 by 3 finished. Yours, you'll cut 3.5 by 2. Okay, so this is a little bigger as well, but just to show you. So you'll have your center block, your 3.5 inch center, piece of fabric, and then we're going to add the flying geese around so the points are going out to the outside of the block. And then this will make a star. So this, on this block, it has a different color in the center, which you totally can do, or you can do like I have done and have it all one fabric. Either way works. And then you will need 4 corner fabrics. These are 3.5 inch. Not 3.5 inch, yours will be 2 inch. Okay, and I like to just kind of lay them beside my sewing machine, and then you can sew rows together, and I like to do it by chain piecing. So I just flip these onto each other and then just stitch down this side, and then you can do the other side and turn it into your machine and stitch down that side. And then you'll have the rows. So all these 3 are sewn. So this row's sewn together, this row's sewn together, this row's sewn together. Press, I like to press towards, on this top row and the bottom row, do the same. Press towards these outside corner units. And then here, press towards this center square. And then when you go to sew these together, you can nestle them. They're going opposite directions. You can nestle them, and it works really well. Make sure when you're sewing along this edge to get right above that intersection, so that when you turn it over, you have a perfect point. Okay, now, so this is what they will look like. This is 6.5 inches as well. So I would do one, make sure everything's good, make sure you're at 6.5 inches. And then I also like to press those last 2 seams towards the center block. And then this little point isn't folding back on itself. You're gonna have a little bit right here with these points, but it's not quite as noticeable. Okay, so you'll have 12 of these, 12 of the dot block, so 12 sawtooth stars, 12 dots, and now we're going to arrange them how we would like them around your quilt. And that can be any way you want to do it. So you're going to make 2 of these units, so you're going to sew them side by side. There's going to be 5 in this row, and the 5 is going to start and end with a dot block. And then there's going to be a 7 unit row, and you're going to start and end with stars. Okay, so every other one. I like to lay it around my whole quilt so I know if you're doing different stars what looks good, and then start sewing them together. Now, I have done this a couple of different ways, sewing them together. As you can see, the seams on this one is going kind of horizontal onto the block. And then on my quilt over here, I sewed it so that the seams are going out to the, the sashing pieces. And either way works. I thought that I wouldn't have to press back on these 2 seams. So when I put the next sashing, I won't have to press back. But I feel like there might have been a little bit of stretching going on. So you can do this either way. You can do it like that and not press back on those seams, or you can do it like this one where I've done a more horizontal, and then those seams are into this seam. And then I've pressed back this way. And then this side doesn't have those two seams there. So either way you want to do it will work. Just decide what's going to work best for you. Okay, now we have the sashing pieces, and we're going to do it just like we did last time. I don't know what happened to my sashing pieces. Oh, maybe they're over here. So we have a 28.5 and a 30.5 inch long piece that will coordinate with these next borders, and then they're 1.5 wide. So cut them 1.5 wide, two 28.5 and two 30.5, and then there'll be a 1 inch sashing finished. So what I like to do, maybe I'll show you on this quilt, is sew opposite ones on, the 28.5, and press it. I like to press it into the sashing because I have all these seams here, and then it just lays really flat. So press it in both sides. And then I'm going to add the top and bottom sashing. And then I'll start again by adding the 5 block piece on each side, and then the 7 block piece on the top and the bottom. And then just as you go along, just make sure you're matching these corners nicely. And then so now you have the 4 stars in the corners, and then the little dot blocks in between. And that's it. It's a fun border. I hope you have fun making them, and we will see you next time in February.